Hello, Mike Phillips here. Today I want to show you something that I am extremely proud of that's taken me a long time to come up with, and that is automation for planetary astrophotography. What we're going to talk about today is my workflow. We're going to talk about the apps that I use, a little history of how I got here. We will go through the tool selection. We will talk about why automation is important. We will talk about the scripts that I've written and show you a little bit how they work. I will show you how the scripts work in action. I'm going to accelerate a time lapse of the scripts working. And when that's complete, we will analyze the results so we can see from beginning to end sort of how this all comes together. So from my workflow perspective, yes, I have my tools arranged around me here. My telescope is getting cleaned, so Sikuli should be back in action and amassing lots of images. I use the Go approach, and that is to take lots of little short RGB sequences. I'm a monochrome imager, and I just shoot all the time, and I get lots of what I'll call sub-images. The advantage to that is I get to make really cool animations at the end of the night, which I think can look really good when you're seeing and conditions are pretty consistent. The apps I use existing apps like AutoStacker and AstraImage, pretty common ones. I use an uncommon one as a monochrome imager, and I need to do RGB assembly. I use a program that has been around in the Linux world called Image Magic with a K. We'll take a look at that. That is really super powerful to, with a single CLI, turn a bunch of monochrome images into a color image, and it also makes animations really nice and smooth. A little history. So I've been at this for a while. I'm a lazy guy at heart, and I get bored clicking and dragging and doing the same repetitive things again and again. There was a program called Sikuli that came out of an MIT grad student project, and as early as May of 2010, like 14 years ago, I was fooling around with trying to figure out how computer vision could take existing apps and sort of just layer on automation on top of it. Really, not doing anything that you wouldn't do as a human being, right? Just sort of automating the human element of stuff. And this is really sort of an attempt for me to give back. I'm a big sort of open source kind of guy. And if this inspires you to go in and take my scripts and figure out how they work or make your own, that's awesome. That's what I want. Tool selection, today's AI can write scripts for you. I found that hard and a little troublesome. So I ended up using a lot of internet searches and reverse engineering. So, I don't expect that you can just pick up my scripts and run them, but I sure hope that it does inspire you and gives you some good ideas on how you could get a little bit of time back with your friends and family and maybe the forums. So, here's my take on automation, right? Its big strengths are consistency, accuracy, and heavy lifting, right? So consistency is a double-edged sword. If I tell it to open a dialog box and paste a path in and open all the files in that path, if the dialog box takes a few seconds longer to open, it's not going to do it right. So it does require some fine tuning, and everybody's computer is different. I've tested these scripts on multiple computers. You have to go in and adjust the paths and things like that, but it's definitely got a lot of flexibility built into it. But from an automation perspective, having that consistency is super, super cool. And because it's consistent, its accuracy is great too, right? Accuracy means you get to fiddle with the settings. So if I say, use this 1.1 value and the results come out and they look okay, I'm like, well, that was a lot of work if I did it by hand. But if I said, well, let's do it with 1.2, automation, it just cranks it through. You go, okay, try a new value, and then you can compare and see which one you like better. The heavy lifting means you're not getting carpal tunnel. And, like I said before, you're spending more time with your friends, your family, or your forums. So just click it, wake up in the next morning, and it's done. So the next part, we're going to take a look at how the scripts are structured. There are some dependencies in here. You'll need AutoHotkey, which is a separate installation. These are all free open source tools. You'll need a Windows subsystem for Linux if you want to do the RGB assembly and the animation. You'll have to, do an apt-get and do updates and installation of Image Magic, things like that. It does use Python as part of Windows subsystem for Linux, but I think it's actually built in, but you might need a couple of packages from pip and things like that. But I will make sure that dependencies are well documented. Next, let's take a look at how the scripts are structured. I'm going to show you that, and each section is run independently, so it's kind of neat. So if you want to just start from the middle and not start from the beginning, like you're done with your stacks, you're happy with your stacks, you want to do some sharpening and see how that ends up panning out, they're sort of modularized. So let's take a look at that. before we take a look at the scripts themselves, let's just quickly review. The three apps I use are AutoStacker, and it's called AS3 in the scripting file names. We have AstraImage, and then finally ImageMagick. So let's take a look at how each one of those looks on the scripts themselves. I'll move you over here. Hi. If you download all the scripts, you're going to notice that all of the AutoStacker ones, the AS3s and File Mover, they all start with a 10s. All the AstraImage ones start with a 20. And then we move on to there's a few variants of the RGB ImageMagick assembly ones. There's one if I was just taking a red animation, not RGB, or just a regular animation redo. I have some other ones that are sort of ancillary that I'm not going to dive too much into now, but if you wanted to get the fire capture settings parsed out to label your images, which I do a lot of, you can grab the WinJupo stuff, which will allow you to get the altitude so you can label all your images properly. And then the final couple pieces are kind of neat, right? So it archives the files along the way so you don't have this disk redundancy and things like that. I mean, as much as I could automate, I could, right? So once I'm done stacking and I know that AutoStacker is complete, I archive the files and I label them all appropriately as with an expiration on it. And then the final image loader is kind of neat. What it does is it pulls the final images up with the animation one next to the other, and then we'll also copy the final image to an internal web server that I have, but it could be anything. You post it to an image hosting service. So literally at the end of the night, you're done with a single click. So we go ahead and take a look at the file structure. I'm just going to walk you through this. It's kind of detailed. So the first thing I did, first and foremost, which I thought was pretty useful and helpful, was to separate the values that you want to play with from the actual script itself. So on the right hand side of the screen here, you're going to see all the program folder locations, some of the little things that there's something in AutoHotkey called SPY. So you're going to have to use a SPY to pull button and label names and things like that out. I use the progress, and AstraImage has a hex color value so that it notifies you when it's done. I try to do file counts as much as possible. So there's this part here. We'll need to spend some time digesting that and ask questions too, right? I'm going to post this to as many different locations as I can to get the word out that you can spend your time better using automation. So the neat part is with the settings, I have a Jupiter setting, a Saturn setting, and a star setting, and each one has different values on it. And what the script will then do, it will read that by the path. So if your path says, fire capture path says, this is my incoming fire capture folder, and it's Jupiter and Saturn, so you image them both on the same night. You'll run the script twice. You'll run it once for Jupiter, but it sees Jupiter in the path, pulls the values out for Jupiter, and adjusts the stacking and sharpening image values based upon what image source you're feeding it. So it's kind of neat in that regard. The coolest thing I've done, and you'll see this when I show you the time lapse next, is that if I have 50 AutoStacker images being processed, the watcher script, this is what we're looking at right now, is essentially counting the file types as it goes. It's down here. So as soon as it detects a non-zero value, it goes into this loop here, and it starts counting the video files. So there's 50 video files, and it waits for the first file to get written. And when the file is written, you'll see a little dialog box pop up down here next to the system tray that says, hey, I found a file. So while AutoStacker is running, AstraImage loads, opens that newly created file, sharpens it, and saves it. And it will leave it there, and you can fiddle with it, and it gives you a little warning to say, hey, there's a new file coming, save your work, and it's going to go on to the next one. But you can, at that point, go back to AstraImage or AutoStacker, and it will close it closes the file because of the way that AstraImage behaves for me. But you'll see that, and I'll try to keep it focused in on AutoStacker for the first 2 or 3 images in the time lapse, so watch for that. And then after that, I'm just going to let it go hands-free. So you don't need to drive it. You can sort of watch it in the background. I'm not going to call this live stacking because it's not for me, right? This is just automation of the things that I would normally do on a manual basis. So let's take a look and see how this all comes together. All right, we are back here on my desktop. I have a shortcut to this main script starter. And what it does is it opens up and it tells you down here, pick your folder. So I have a Jupiter and a Saturn folder. I'm going to start my Jupiter set. So I go in, essentially I've got 6 files here, which represents 2 RGBs, just kind of a sample subset. So I'll grab the path, I'm going to cut it, close it. This is just a Control X, Control W, nothing magical there. Literally paste the path in to the raw AVI files, hit enter, and it says hands off. So I'm not going to touch it. There's no black magic going on underneath the hood here. This is all just auto hotkey from the get-go. And the first thing it's going to do is count the AVIs. There's 6 of them there. You can see in the notification window, auto hotkey's got some really neat notifications. It opens the application up. I actually have 2 installations of this one. I'm pointing to the one on the desktop. It pastes the path in, right? So this is a la the video from Sikuli many, many years ago. And I'm just going to watch it here for a little bit. So it loads. I put a little timer in here after it places the multi-points. So it says, override any stack settings within 20 seconds. So if it was hands-free and I went to bed right now, it would just run all by itself. But if you wanted to pick, a smaller AP size or a bigger AP size, just hit it, off it goes. After the 20 seconds, it's going to hit the stack button for me, and then it starts the watcher script. Right? So now it's stacking at this point. The watcher script is initially counting files. So it finds 0, so it loops through until it finds a file. Once it finds a file, then it will load AstraImage and show me a preview of the sharp image. So I found myself doing was running this while I was capturing to just see if my settings were fine, if my conditions were okay, just wanting the result. And so this initially was just a stacking script, and then the sharpening happened at the very end. And because of my impatience, I would mid stack I would load the sharpened image, and it would throw the script off. And I said, well, what if I rewrote it so that it waited for a file to be written and then just showed me the sharpened preview? So now I get to see every sharpened preview as soon as it's written to the disk. So it's really neat. So I'm going to time lapse this part. We're going to jump ahead and then we'll come back. So here we are at 16x watching all these scripts taking place here. In the background, we're watching AutoStacker performing stacking actions, counting the files, loading things in AstraImage, sharpening and saving them. That's a beautiful blue image there. When a red, green, blue sequence is done, it just keeps going through the monochromes. You can optionally assemble a color image once those are all complete, and you can fiddle around all you want in AstraImage. Nothing bad will happen. It will close your file and you might lose the progress, but the original raws are still stacked and counted. We're up to 4 of 6. 16x makes it go really, really fast. I do like the fact that you can sort of fiddle around with anything in the background. You saw me looking at the scripts at one point. I'm looking at my internal web pages in Home Assistant. You can pretty much do whatever you want, and AutoHotkey's pretty tolerant of things moving into the background and still being able to close and manipulate. If it's interacting with file menus, you probably want to just leave it alone. So we're going to watch the internal web page here. And the first thing that's going to happen once we're done with all of the stacking is the file counting. If those are equal, then it will archive the video files to whatever drive you specify. Here's the color assembly and the animation creation. Then we archive the final product, copied to the internal web server, and it will load the files when it is complete, and voila, we're done. Automatic posting to the web, into my internal web server, happened at the end of the time lapse there. But so when the script is done, it sends a notification to the local display saying the script is complete. I also use this Home Assistant agent, which will then pick up the status and send a notification out to my cell phone, as well as publishing to the internet, right? So that's just based upon this status right here, which says, it was doing all of these recordings and statuses, et cetera, and it sends a notification out. That's just part of Home Assistant. But when you look at this is a simple HTML with a meta refresh on it, which, because I didn't have focus on it, didn't refresh. But it picked up over here. So, if you have a display on the wall like I do, you'll see the image pop right there, right in the morning. The other thing that is fun is it opens up all the images here. So you saw me sort of parceling through them. You can kind of go, oh, you know, the seeing was best right here at, was it 0503 timestamp? And then the animations are set to bests, which improves some levels. You know, this is again a customization. These are a little extra than the 2, so you know I reran them a few times. Then there's also the monochrome ones. So here's the red, right? So I did a reemergence of Io from Shadow of Jupiter animation, and I did it in all red. So that would have been the red script that I would have ran for that one. Here's the green, and I like the rock. And you can specify the speed of these as you see fit. And then the blue. Some of these blues came out really nice with, you can see the cloud details in the great red spot. Anyway, I think this is super fun to just start it by pasting it in the path. And I did have to interact with this script once because it was overwriting files. So, you know, when a clean, pristine set of images comes in, it's pretty flawless. If it gets prompted with overwriting of files for reruns and stuff like that, it gets a little wonky and you got to babysit it periodically, but a lot of the work is done for me. This is meant to be just a brief overview. We'll do some more in-depth technical deep dives as I update the scripts. I'll probably come in and do a little bit more advanced tutorials. Definitely come back, check the blogs out, check the GitHub pages out, and clear skies and happy imaging. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this and were inspired by this. I'm going to show you 2 final things on this side here. I'm going to show you the Home Assistant dashboard that has the finished product that just arrived automatically with the refresh. And over here, you're going to look at the notification that it sent me while I was walking around outside, telling me that the Planetary processing was done. So I appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe if you can. I hope to produce a lot more content. So clear skies, have fun, and be safe.